I'd like to start today's podcast off with a poem. To niche or not to niche, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles.
That was great. Thank you, Braden. To everybody listening, welcome back to the Socality show. We are so excited to hop on today for an episode chatting about niching. Niching. To niche or not to niche, that is the question. And we're going to chat about our thoughts on it because there's a lot of directions we can go with this. What is a niche to begin with, actually?
What is a niche? I feel like a niche is a specialty. I think maybe that's where you start. Something that defines you as an artist, a category.
I agree. I think you can get very, very niche.
Definitely different degrees. And when I think of niching on social media, I feel like it can be super broad. Like even just being a photographer can be a niche in itself. I think niching is a topic that lots of people, they're trying to grasp. Do I need to niche down to be successful online, to have my business see success, to see success personally as a creator? And to what degree do I need to niche down to see that success online? And what are your guys' thoughts? Do you need to have a niche to be successful with your business online?
I'm probably like you, Chloe. Like we've chatted about this, but I feel like I'm the anti-niche kind of person. Like I felt early on Instagram on a photography standpoint pushed me into a bit of a niche, like when I was kind of getting started, and that would have probably been that like adventure photography, like lifestyle kind of space. But I was always like fighting it because I wanted to write and I wanted to like do all these other things. And so there was always this like the content and the like social media space would kind of pull you into that. But personally, I think I had a hard time like identifying as one of those things. So at the same time, I grew an Instagram account because I niched. Like if I'm being honest, like I saw Instagram growth and I built an audience because I was posting the same kind of stuff consistently for a number of years. I would say like portrait and adventure photography, but it was definitely like what maybe defined me and made it unique was I was doing like my take on like portraits and people, but in a landscape adventure kind of take. But it was definitely still within, I would say, like an adventure kind of travel photography space.
Do you think that's part of what makes somebody successful within a niche when you put your own spin on the niche? Is that what?
The sweet spot for me was in, okay, I found a bit of a tribe. I found something I like, but my take on it was probably informed by other interests. So even when I felt like I was still getting dragged maybe into an algorithm or into like what people wanted, I was still the guy that was like writing long captions. And when everybody else is like short captions doing something, I'm like, I love to write. So I'm going to post a landscape photo or a portrait of somebody and write like a 3-paragraph caption about something inspiring me. And there's like a few other people, but the ones that I found were like connecting back then because it'd be like, you like to write too and shoot. And probably the combo of like my eye and then like my passion for sharing ideas and that kind of thing, even in a space where what I was creating looked, you know, like was in a defined kind of field, I think it's still, at least I know for me, it like positioned me in a different way or connected me with different people or like placed me around people that liked some of those different things or attracted people that were more like me or appreciated those things. So
I have mixed feelings on the niche because as I was growing on social media, I was told time and time again, you need to pick a niche, like niche down, pick a niche. And that was really tough for me because I couldn't pick a niche. Like I wasn't sure if I wanted to be the photographer or be the model or do travel stuff or like there was a million different directions I wanted to go. I was like, what if I want to post a hair video one day? Like what if I want to post a makeup tutorial one day? Like that doesn't fit into photography. And so it was something that was really challenging for me. Do I need to niche down? And I kind of just kept going, trying to keep things as broad as possible for me without fitting too much into a niche. So I did tell myself, I'm going to try to stick to some core categories that people can expect from me. So that's travel, that's fashion, that's lifestyle. But I'm going to allow myself to branch out every now and then to do different things. And I think it has been really successful for me personally still by not choosing a niche. And I think now that we're like past the beginning stages of social media where people are just starting to get introduced to it, it's helped me more in like an overall role by not choosing a niche, because I'm now viewed as a person with multiple interests, and I feel like people feel like they can connect to me a little bit more, versus if I were just educating people on one topic, like this is how you take self-portraits, and that's all I ever shared about. I feel like there'd be a piece of me that's missing that people they don't know that about me. And so it's harder for them to connect to me. And that's why as a creator, getting brand deals and stuff like that has helped me in that sense.
I think there's people that are really like great personal brands. And then there's people that are really great, like subject matter experts or really good at like doing a thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like because of your personality and all of that, like weaving you into all of those things probably like made that more possible than maybe somebody who like
definitely
maybe less comfortable or like feels really confident in a thing. But
yeah, and 100% you're right when it comes to that. I think that the reason it worked for me is because in all of the things I did, I still inserted personality. And so at the end of the day, if I had to like define myself by one niche, my niche was me. Like it all has to do with me and my opinions and what my interests are. And so I'll joke with people, say it sounds selfish, but my niche is me. But I think that's why it worked for me. And my content goals, I wanted to be able to insert myself into my content and have an opinion and have different streams. And so that works well. I think if your goals are something where you don't want to be inserting yourself into the content, if you don't want it to be personality based, it might be better to pursue a niche that's more education focused or just like really diving into one topic versus being more broad. And I do think that's why it worked for me personally. One thing across niches that I think is part of the reason why they might work so well for growing an audience really fast is there's a sense of familiarity with your audience. They come to expect something from you. And I think that if you don't have a niche, you can still find ways to build that sense of familiarity, even if it's not on the topic that you're talking about. Like, for example, you said that you did long captions. And so for some people, when they might see a long caption, they might think, oh, that's John's content. Or for example, when I didn't have a really strict niche, one thing I was doing is I was trying to have witty, funny first liners in my captions. Yeah, and that was something that I incorporated in pretty much every post, whether it was like a cooking recipe or a photography post or anything. And I think that that was still a way I was able to build that familiarity where people are still expecting something from me every single time, instead of just fully going rogue and just having completely random pieces of content. I found one theme that I stuck with throughout everything. And I think that was helpful.
I think like where it gets hairy for me, or like where it gets kind of confusing, is like that there's like this idea behind like between you got the niche down, or you can go like personal brand, where it's just like it's you as a niche.
You are the niche.
Yeah, you're the niche, which is like I think there's value in both of them. And like I find it hard to be like, yeah, I'm in this camp or I'm in this camp, because there's such value in both of them. And I'm wondering if like a lot of people see success, it's both. It's like your personal brand becomes your niche, obviously, but there's still like, even you said there's still like anchors in who you are, like travel and photography. And there's like, so there are niches within you as a personal brand.
So we did a workshop like with Canon Creator Lab and like that series that we do with Canon with Chelsea Kawai, probably like a couple years ago now. It was one of our online sessions, and she's such a great example of somebody who I think has a very definitive personal brand, has really built probably similar to you on like personality. And I think people really connect with her as a person because she shares so much of her life online. But she shared a few exercises and tools. And the one thing that I think was really helpful was she offered kind of this idea of like asking the question of what's your main act, and then what are your supporting acts? And so like asking that, going through that process of going, okay, so like, what's the main core thing that I like care most about, that I'm going to talk about most? And then what are those additional things? And what was interesting for her, I think her example was, it was connected to intentional living and being this intentional living advocate that she kind of expressed as her main act. and then more of the interests like travel and like acro yoga and those things that you might see from her. I think it's helpful to actually do the work even if you're pretty niche, you know, to go, what's the core part of me that consistently shows up, and then where do my interests kind of like add. It's easier said than done though. Like, I'll be honest, I've been like going through a lot of that process for myself in this season and asking those questions. And it takes time, I think, especially when you like a lot of different things, to define what those things are that you care most about, though you want to put forward first.
And on that point, I also think it's important to note that it's okay if your interests shift over time and you don't want to stick with a previous niche that you had, because as you grow and evolve as a person, you're going to have different interests. You're going to want to share different things. And I think it's okay to transition your content to follow your life. I think that's somewhere where a lot of people can feel really stuck in the niche that they've chosen for themselves, is they've spent their entire life dedicated to, say, talking about let's say vegan cooking, and they've been doing vegan cooking their whole life. And then one day they're like, you know what, I'm now with a partner who's not vegan and I want to branch out and I want to try something different. Like, maybe I want to do a dessert that's got whipped cream. And it's okay to eventually shift your content to fit whatever your lifestyle change might be, and know that you're gonna be able to do that. At the end of the day, like, even I think if you get a little bit of backlash at first, like if you create a community of people who care about you as a person, who actually value your content and trust you and your voice, I think that it's okay to wiggle a little bit. Looked like you were going to say something. What were you thinking?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I totally agree. I think it's scary. And there's like, the fear is very validated by like what you see, I think, when artists change their style and when people change their, like, I think the music comes to mind when you followed an artist for a really long time. I feel like the easiest example to talk about is Kanye. Kanye is like somebody who everyone cherishes a lot of his old music. Old Kanye, I want the old Kanye back. And he even talks about it himself, right? And then you have this, like, an artist be like, okay, I'm changing the way I create my art, or I'm changing myself, or I'm evolving. And the audience sometimes struggles with that, because it's like, oh, I came to this artist because I fell in love with this art that you created. And then it's like, it changes and it's something completely different now. I find that like that tricky, because it's like, you as an artist, if you're in a niche and you're like creating a certain type of art and you're like, I'm going to change, you don't know how your audience is going to react. Like, you have the total right to create whatever art you want in the world. But sometimes it's a dice roll, because you don't know exactly how people respond. And I think people are a lot more open to it than you as an artist think they're going to be. But yeah, it's still a tricky thing.
Two thoughts I have there. One, I think they are, but what sucks is that our current like social landscape rewards repetition and bringing people in for the exact same thing. Even if you've woven in little parts of you and it's not cookie cutter, it's still pretty unique, but it's consistent. You pivot and you try and do something else. And in a lot of cases, it's like, yeah, maybe you've built like a audience, or like, but so much of like, I mean, I don't know about you, Chloe, but like, it feels like so much of what brings people in, especially in some of these, like with a lot of the apps and everything now, is like what they're looking for. So I think there has to be a level of courage that you just like take as an artist to go, it actually doesn't matter what the reception is, or what like, you need to research, you need to kind of ping the market. There's all of that goes into it, but a level of just like, the reason we respect, you know, like I don't know if we respect, everybody's on the fence. Kanye is a delicate subject right now. But like, I'll say the reason we respect artists that are willing to take big risks and try big things and shift and change and evolve over time is often because like they do something that then, like even Beyonce right now, like she's putting out country, but it still sounds like, you know, it's totally. Like, but it's, she's trying things, she's putting things out, she's risking, like that some parts of her fan base may not love it.
Yeah. And I feel like for the most part, if you come at something genuinely and with your heart, I feel like people are going to see that and they're going to respect it, whether they like the art itself or not, for the most part. And so I think if you are transitioning, if it's something that you really actually truly are excited about, people are going to sense that in you, even if it's not their taste. And they often will still support you in that.
Do you think it has something to do with the outcome people are expecting? I know, have you read the Rick Rubin book?
I love that book.
Yeah, I haven't actually read it. I just bought it, but I listened to some podcasts with him and he talks a lot about creating without an outcome. If you're creating with the outcome of like holding on to this an audience that you've built, it's like, then you're going to run into like issues as a creative, because you're trapping yourself. You're saying, you're like, this is my audience. I know what they want. I'm going to give it to them. Yeah. If you start to create, like you're saying, with like your heart and being like, I'm an artist, I'm going to create. Do you think that's part of the formula then for
longevity?
Yeah. Longevity, growth. I don't know. Yeah.
I feel like it can be, for sure. But at the end of the day, I feel like it does have to do with what are your goals as a creator? Yeah. Are your goals to be an artist, or are your goals to grow really fast on social media? And if your goals are just to grow a really big audience really fast, maybe niching down and being hyper specific and like avoiding all of that other, like you're basically just telling the direct audience, this is what I do. Like that's the answer for you. And it can be really beneficial that way.
I think you just hit a big one. I mean, I was saying in my own life right now, I've been kind of going through the process of asking questions and like revisiting, like, what is my personal brand? How am I communicating, and kind of getting back in the game, if you will. And honestly, it's like, I've been just kind of doing like reading, looking, and just kind of, I think looking at people I admire or like personal brands, and I'm like, oh, they're doing something cool, or often they're running a business, or they're multi-dimensional, right? It's like they're a creative person and they're a communicator, but they're also selling something or building something. But I think that the first thing that I've been coming back to for myself is, I think what you were getting at all of it, it's just like, what's your why? What's your reason for being? Like, why are you creating? And if it is like, I think early on, my why was like, I'm going to ride this social media wave to build an audience, because I still want to communicate. But I was like, I want to like do something with that, and I want to engage that. But there was still an active sense of growth involved, which meant I was willing to play the game a little bit and do the things and then I hit a phase where I was just like, I don't care about the game. I don't care about a bigger audience. Like, I don't need more followers. And I think, again, that's where then those seasons, I felt like the season where I didn't care about like social growth was the season that brought me into creative growth personally, where it was like, I could care less how many likes something got or what people thought. But then I actually found in that season, I was getting, like, the people I cared about were way more engaged, bought in. The like hyper growth wasn't there because I wasn't chasing it, but the creative growth was, right? So the goal probably shifts depending on where you're at in your journey, right? But I think defining where you're at in your journey and what you want right now is pretty important.
Absolutely. I think that's the most important thing. If you can decide, where you are in your journey and what do you really want right now, that can just answer the question for you. To niche or not to niche.
To niche or not to niche. So do you think if you're somebody who's like, I want to grow a social following, I'm a photographer, let's say, I'm like, I want to grow a following that fits my goals for like what I want for my career. And but I also want to be a social media personality, and I want to be able to fully flex my creative ability. Do you think then that picking a really specific niche is the way to go?
Let's roll with this. Let's take the scenario. So
my goal is I want to grow to 100K, let's say.
Why do you want to grow to 100K?
I want the financial freedom that I think that's going to bring.
Okay.
So you want to be booking more clients through social media?
Booking more clients.
Do you want to be an influencer as well on social media?
Yeah, I want to be famous.
Okay. I think personally that there would be value in niching down for that. If your goal is just to grow to 100,000 followers really quickly, you can identify what type of audience you want to be growing. You can start to create reels, posts catered to them, answering their questions, doing things that you know will attract them, and then just go with it. But at the same time, if you're doing personality based content, I also think it's important that if you're not just posting just your photography, you are sharing a little bit about yourself, especially if you're going to be doing like sponsored posts, anything like that. I'd say it would be good to be hopping on stories, maybe sharing a bit of your personal life, a little bit of a mix.
Mm-hmm. Do you think after you've like maybe hit a goal, when you're like growing, you've niched down, you've hit the reels hard on Instagram, let's say, and you've like grown a little bit of a following. Once you hit that goal, is that your opportunity to start to like open up to more of your personal branding and like show your personality? Or do you think there's room to do that as you grow as well?
You're best to kind of try and do it all the way up, like the whole way there.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's rare that usually everybody figures it all out and has all the pieces all at once. So often it's like things can be a little one-dimensional, or like you're like, oh, I'm really doing this and I'm riding this wave, or I'm growing this, or I'm just doing this. But I think if you can start dripping what makes you, what even while you're maybe riding like a major kind of core, if you're in the content space, like a consistent niche in maybe your content creation, or in what you're putting out. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think that there's a few ways to do it. I think personally, one of the best ways, if you want people to feel connected to you, is share that along the way instead of just growing really fast and then starting to tell people who you are, because you're kind of going to be surprising them at like, once you've grown this audience, then you're going to be like sharing things about yourself, versus they could have been growing with you. And I feel like while you're growing and people are starting to get connected to those little things about you, that provides an opportunity for them to feel more connected to your journey, to like actually really truly feel connected to you as a brand and your work, and feel like they're your friend along the way, versus, oh, I was there when they blew up and now I'm starting to get to know this person, you know? But I've seen on TikTok, for example, lots of people who have blown up super fast. They got 1 million followers within a week. And then they start to share a little bit about their personality. And you can still do it. Like I was sharing earlier an example of Anna Sitar on TikTok. She started by only sharing Starbucks reviews. That was like her primary content, is she did this series where she would just go through the drive-thru and try a new drink every day and give her review. And the videos went super viral. She blew up really fast, and that's when I started following her, and I didn't know anything about her. But I was like, oh, I like her personality. She's kind of funny. Yeah. And then once she hit millions of followers, then she started branching out in terms of content and sharing little pieces about herself. And I was totally okay with it. You know, like it was still okay. It wasn't like she needed to stick to Starbucks, or I wasn't mad when she started sharing a little bit about how she liked photography or how she liked dance or singing or all these different things. I thought it was really interesting. And so it's okay to do both, but if you have the choice, I would say it's nice to share a little bit along the way.
Where in this whole space, like, are you still butting up on this question? You know, like we're kind of going niche, not niche. You were kind of like, I'm anti-niche. I'm trying to be me as the niche. But where are the pain points for you right now? Like where is that hard? Where's that? Like, what are you trying to solve still?
This is a question I still deal with on the daily. Like, should I niche down more? Should I keep it broad? Because I think myself as a creator, I can identify that if I were to niche down really tightly, say for example, hair videos. If I were to only do hair videos, I know I could grow really fast. Like, because in the past I did like a streak of 2 weeks of only hair videos and I grew 20,000 followers. But I'm like, I don't want to only be a hair influencer. Yeah. And so even though I was seeing a lot of growth really fast, I slowed down on those videos because I didn't want to lose the rest of my existing followers. And I wanted to make a place where everybody feels welcome and not just people with long hair. And so the challenge for me is, how do you keep everybody happy? And I know at the end of the day, you can't. Like, it's really difficult to always please everybody. So where I'm at is, how do I still keep those existing communities that I know are following me? How do I make them still interested, still happy, and still engaged, and like still feeling like they're a part of a community, or even like they're my friend? And so if I niche down too tightly, like right now I'm at over 600,000 combined followers. If I were to niche down right now at the stage I'm at, I feel like I would probably lose a lot of people. And those are people who I still connect with, you know? And so it might be really nice because I might grow a lot of people, but I don't want to lose the travel community if I were to just do hair videos, or if I were to just talk about celiac disease. I don't want to lose everybody else who doesn't have an autoimmune disorder, you know? And so I'm at this really weird stage of like, how much do I share about each topic? And I think that's something that most people grapple with. Like, how much do I share about each topic? Because there's a lot of topics I could talk about, you know? And at the beginning, that was also something I faced. Back when I first started social media, I shared a lot of modeling stuff. And now I don't share as much about like my modeling journey or like going to active shoots. I share more about like my personal life. And I'm okay with that transition because I think I've been able to show myself more as a creator, but it's still something I face every day.
I think it's helpful I think the purpose sometimes of these conversations is to just acknowledge that we're all at every stage still wrestling with this
Definitely.
stuff, you know, and I think the lie on social media usually is the influencers and the person who's like, do these 3 things and like you're gonna achieve this, and without fail, and like there's nothing wrong with it. We're all needing to sell things and build communities and do all of that, but the tendency can be they're presenting it to sell you on something, to get you in the funnel, to like pipeline you. And it's just like the reality is they're still figuring it out too. Like they have figured something out, and we're all, you know, but even I guess my point is the person you're looking at who looks like they've got it all figured out is still just at a different stage of the journey, also figuring out what their thing is now and what their next thing is going to be.
100%.
You know?
Yeah. And that's something massive that I've noticed upon talking with other really successful creators. There have been creators that I had looked up to my entire life. And then I got to know them and they're dealing with the exact same thing. They're like, I don't know whether I should do this or should do that, or should I just transition it completely or stick to what I'm doing? And on social media, they come across as that they've got everything figured out, that everything is perfect. They know exactly what they're doing, but it's okay if you have those questions. That's totally human and super normal. And you're not alone in feeling that.
When you are in those transitions, like when you're asking, has there been any tools or like either of you or like anything like that you guys have found helpful? Like, cause I think I don't know about you, but for me, I feel like I hit seasons where I'm like, I've got it. I know my lane. I'm like, this is more or less it. I'm like just executing. And then without fail, I hit those like transition seasons where it's like little discomfort, little creatively burnt out, maybe a little like don't care about half of what I'm making anymore. And it feels like that, like we all get to watch other people do it too, where you're like, I can tell you're there. And then they're like fully locked in. And I guess my question is like, anything you guys have found helpful in the in-betweens? Like not when everything's clear and rolling, but when you're in the transition season or space?
One thing that has been helpful for me is kind of taking a moment to sit back and think, okay, why did I even start doing this? And it kind of goes back to that, what's your why?
Yeah, what's your why?
And for me, a lot of it is like, what actually makes you excited? Like what makes you excited about what you're doing? Like what do you enjoy doing? And then just go back to doing that, so that when you're in that moment of questioning everything, you're still doing something that you enjoy. And that's why you started in the first place, and things will figure themselves out. I've also found leaning on your community at times like that can also be really helpful. Like what I previously said, lots of people are likely going through the same thing. And your friends probably have amazing advice to share with you too.
I would say take the pressure off of yourself.
Yeah.
Like we put so much pressure on ourselves to like have it all figured out and to be like, oh my goodness, like now I'm in a spot where I'm like, I don't know what direction I want to go. It's like, it's okay. Just like, you know, I tell myself that all the time. I'm like, just like, like we're trying to have fun here.
Yeah.
You know, give yourself space to breathe, give yourself space to.
I think so often the downside of the creative journey is you started because it was fun and it was exciting, and somebody was like, you could make money, or maybe even it wasn't even about making money, but it was like, I could do this. Oh, and then you get your first job and you're like, and someone paid me to like do this. And then a couple years later, it's like all of a sudden it's a job and you're burnt out and you're like, why am I doing like looking at friends that are working 9 to 5s or working like regular jobs being like, that looks really good right now, you know? And And it's all part of that. In the midst of it, I think it's so important to, I think you mentioned it, like stop, rest, like recover, get back. Like that book, The Artist's Way, so good. If you're in that space of like, it's like a 12-week, just like action plan for exercises and getting yourself kind of unblocked creatively. But do something like that, lean on your community, find friends that are, I find too, sometimes find people that are excited. Like if you're stuck in that space, like find that friend that's actually like rolling currently. They're not in the pivot point. They're just having fun. They're in the middle of it. And you're like, hey, can we hang out? Can I just like tag along or do something? And
I think we keep coming back to like what's your why, but I think it's so powerful because no matter what, if you come back to that when you're in times of like trying to figure stuff out, that the advice kind of comes naturally from answering that question, right? It's like if you're in it just to have fun, like what I said before, I was like, get rid of, like, relieve all the pressure off of yourselves. Like that's great advice for somebody who's like just trying to have fun with
like a hobbyist.
Media. If you're in it and you're like, I'm trying to get to 100K because I have all these reasons and I have all these whys. The advice for you, hit the pavement again, maybe. Like use the pressure, use the pressure that you have on yourself, use the discomfort, hit the pavement running, like get fresh, get clean, put in the work. But like, I think coming back to that why is just, you start to derive all the relevant advice to you from answering that question.
One thing I'll add, and maybe like that I think has been really helpful, it's getting clear on who your audience and like who your customer is, who your audience is, who you're trying to serve. Like I know for me, I was just journaling that the other day and I was just like, my audience is basically me, but like a few steps behind. Like it's like people that have a whole bunch of similar things and care about, like, they're not exactly like me, but they care about a lot of the same threads. They're fighting the same battles. They're doing the same things. And I think when it gets out of us, I think we get so caught up in the like me trap where it's like, oh, like you see all these creators on Threads right now complaining about their engagement, you know, or it's just like a pity party. And it's like, guys, did you forget why? Like, I know we're coming back to the why, but it's like, instead of whining about nobody seeing your stuff, just start like giving back, like contributing, like pumping each other's tires, like supporting each other, like figuring out why are you here? Is it just so that you can be exalted and like worshiped online and like pumped up? Like pump some other people up, like go be that for everybody else. Everybody else isn't, you're not getting like the love, like go love on everybody else. Like, I don't know, maybe now I'm on my high horse, but
no, you got to stop complaining about the algorithm. I mean, it's like taxes.
Yeah, they should make a rule. Like if you're going to complain about the algorithm, you have to go and comment on 20 people's posts and positively support them.
It's like gratitude in a stressful season.
You just got to accept it. Like it's like taxes. Like I feel that my dad has been talking about taxes for years. He goes, the tax man cometh. Like the faster you can accept the fact that it happens, it's a part of life, or you can be bitter about it. Same thing with the engagement rate. Like you can accept that it's going to be that way. Or my takeaway is that we have the opportunity to ask the question why, and that will inform our strategy behind a lot of what we do creatively. Part of that is to niche or not to niche. I think there's I think you can go full personal brand, you can go full niche down really fast, and all of those have different outcomes.
They're all tools in the creator's toolkit.
I'd say there's no wrong answer. You can choose whichever you want to do. You can choose to niche down, or you can choose not to entirely, or kind of do a mix. But whatever fits best for your personal goals, that's what you should do. And just identify that.
Try it all.
And have fun with it.
Yeah. And get really clear. Take the time to get clear.
To niche or not to niche, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles. That is from the homeboy William Shakespeare.
If you enjoyed listening today, make sure that you go and check us out on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. We're on major listening platforms, so go give us a 5-star review if you enjoyed today's episode, and check us out on social media. We're on Instagram as well, and we'll see you there. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.